Trade, supply chain readiness, a roller coaster economy, the greatest lack of institutional trust in decades, an ever-changing political landscape. These are just some of the things that leaders of multinational corporations must keep track of. But few people understand these complexities and the intersection of the public and private sector more than Andrew Liveris. Rising the ranks at the Dow Chemical Company to eventually become its chairman and CEO, Liveris has spent his entire career not just understanding what is happening at his own company, but understanding what impact those things have on the outside of his company and how it impacts industries, governments, and societies. In this iteration of the Swift Hour, we talked to Andrew Liveris about his new portfolio of roles, including his role as chairman of Lucid Motors, the electric car company. And we also talk about his time reflecting on the intersection of the public and private sectors and what role the private sector must rise to if we are to navigate some of the issues that in this turbulent and changing world seem to be happening every day. Andrew, it's great to see you, and thank you for being here.
Lovely to be with you, Matt.
Let's set the scene a little bit. One of the big themes that is going to be discussed throughout this entire summit is the future of ESG reporting. I interviewed earlier today a member of Congress who said, I hate ESG reporting, it's outrageous. Republican member. All of a sudden now it's starting to become even a partisan issue and subject. What is the future of ESG reporting with companies today?
Well, regulatory world, government world has always struggled with the new and trailblazing new ground as it relates to metrics, as it relates to performance. So remember Sarbanes-Oxley, and remember all the noise around that, and what we had to do post-Enron. So we're in that sort of chaos right now. I think the private sector is basically saying, stop giving me the acronym. Stop just saying, all my investors have to have some sort of green bond and money's going to follow ESG metrics. There are none. Okay, we're at the very early stage, Model T Ford stage of where ESG metrics will go. Firstly, you need to tear it apart. It's E, S, and G, and they mean very different things. There was a time, United Nations, Sustainable Development, all of that, where we had to basically summarize for everybody that the need was there. We're past that time. We're now, as Warren Buffett famously says, you expect what you inspect. We have to inspect. Now that means that government and private sector have to get together on all those three pillars and say, what can be done in 5 years? What can be done in 15 years? What should be done by 50 years? Now I've just given you 3 timeframes that way surpass elected officials, right? Elected officials don't have those timeframes. So who's going to do this? Where's this going to come from? I believe that what is happening is business is saying, okay, we're going to get serious about that. Where each of us represent an enterprise, each of us has constituencies, citizens if you like, and our citizens are demanding our performance be measured on environmental grounds, on social grounds, and on governance grounds. I need partnership models with NGOs, partnership models with regional governments to figure out what it means in regional jurisdictions. And it's kind of, it's like a mosaic. A mosaic or even murals don't look good until they're together. We're so far away from putting it together, so each of those pieces of the mosaic need to be constructed. And I believe the leadership for that, as my upcoming book will talk about, should come from business.
So talk a little bit about more of that role for business, because I think there's some good actors, there's some bad actors, there's some good leaders, there's some bad leaders, but it does feel like companies are stepping up. However, it also feels in a lot of ways that it's just a communications exercise, a marketing exercise.
Exactly, and we should be heavily criticized if it's talk the talk and nothing else. Walk the walk, much harder. I'd like to think every change has about 5 stages. At the beginning is denial, then there's defiance, then there's debate, and then there's discussion, and then there's do. Okay? We're nowhere near the do stage, okay? And what is happening is some companies are racing up through the debate and discussion saying, enough. Enough think tank world, as do tank world. What do we do in each of these areas to set the standard? I need to have prototyping, experimenting. I need to try some things out. I need to understand what transparency in the supply chain looks and modern slavery. Let's go to a few source countries and insist on those standards in those countries, educate those countries, so when I source product, I know it's not the product of modern slavery or child labor. These sorts of prototypes will instruct us on what needs to be done. Those companies are brave. They are taking early steps. And I think it'll cascade, as most things do, but it can't be just marketing. I mean, then we can be accused of greenwashing. Then we can be accused of, I don't know, you're doing the role of an elected official. What the hell are you talking about that for? That's justifiable critique. We need to actually do what enterprises and businesses do so well. Develop the smart metrics and experiment with them, prototype them, and take the lead at the risk of raising the ire of some of our stakeholders. Because of course the primary stakeholder, the shareholder, has only recently got religion on green as it relates to climate change, right? Companies like Dow and Lucid and IBM and Aramco and all the ones I serve on have been way ahead, but they've never had a reporting mechanism to respond to. Now's the time for us to step up and help governments, help regulators come up with the right reporting mechanisms. Back to your first question.
How do you, when you're running these companies though, how do you navigate such dramatic political transitions?
Yeah, very hard. Means boards have to change. So the role of the board, 20 years ago, country club boards. 10 years ago, engaged boards, better, okay? Today, activist boards. So what an activist board does, firstly, you've got to recraft it so that the board members are relevant and skilled going forward, not looking back. Now that means tenured boards should be done and dusted. Instead of joining a board and serving till age, whatever, 72, 75, you've got to keep your board relevant. You've got to keep it nimble. You've got to keep it very interactive with the issues of the day. And when it comes together, you basically say, okay, we're going to do this, and we're going to go out there and articulate to all of our stakeholders why we're doing it. And it may not be popular, but we're not here for popular. We're here to earn the right to operate in society. Notice what I said. I didn't say profit. I said earn the right to operate in society. And in so doing, everyone profits. That mindset shift takes a brave board and a brave CEO, but that time has arrived.
And so you believe companies will be rewarded that do this?
Exactly.
Both on the bottom line and...
We aren't there with understanding the metrics, but we know through history that innovators, when a disruption occurs, that first period of time, you don't get rewarded. I mean, when Bezos created Amazon, what was he doing? Online book selling? He'd get killed, and Musk, and all the great innovators of our time. This is what we need, an innovation to the business model. The business model needs to be disrupted for all of us because humanity's changed. We've realized that the planet is our border, not our fence, okay? We've realized that everyone on the planet needs to be included and treated with the quality of life that we all have, not at the expense of others. This is now the win-win time. How do you create the win-win when mostly it's been win-lose? Someone suffered for our gain. The gain then is short-lived, okay? So that mindset shift is a cultural shift for everybody. How do you put that in place? I believe you can't do it top-down. It has to be bottom-up. So your conference, your summit is a bottoms-up way of doing that. In fact, integrating these best ideas into my 5Ds, but to the do part, is actually the most important thing we can be doing right now, and being inclusive of every audience, not just the privileged.
Do you talk about sort of the geopolitical space today? I mean, it's hard to not think immediately of U.S.-China relations.
Yeah.
I talked to your fellow Concordia Leadership Council member, President Barroso, about the future of European and U.S. relations.
Yeah.
Are you optimistic or pessimistic?
Maps are being redrawn beyond the 20th century geopolitical maps. In fact, if you think about some of the issues of the 20th century, post-World War II, when the Middle East was remade by British cartographers, okay, and created artificial borders between tribes of different Arab nations and created Israel. Look what that created for the 20th century. So the 21st century geopolitical map is very different and being redrawn, not with the old names. The relevance of ship called Europe, a ship called North America, trade agreements like that are gone. We actually now need values-based partnerships on countries with common value systems. And those value systems, okay, call them what you like, are absolutely totally what we'd expect. How do we treat ourselves? Now, to get from here to there, you need different type of geopolitical partnerships. The old contract, I guess you would call it, China, you make everything, US will buy everything, okay? That contract created a win-loss situation, okay? American consumers got addicted to cheap, okay? And frankly, consumed in excess. Chinese producers did not benefit from a quality of life, and in fact benefited by having a low labor cost pool that's infinite. That contractual geopolitical relationship broke down as we entered this century. The internet has flattened everything, digital has flattened everything, and as a consequence of that, everyone knows what everyone is doing at all times. So we need a values-based trade system, a values-based global order. Like and like need to aggregate. And it may be countries you're alongside, like US and Canada, but it may be countries that are nowhere near you. US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, UK, okay? Japan, Korea. There's an alliance. We all think the same. We all want the world to be treated exactly like we treat ourselves. We all have this higher goal. Find a way to get the alliance structures to mimic the value system of those countries. Aspirant countries, for sure, help them. Help the Indonesias, okay? Help the Indias. Help the Saudi Arabias and the Egypts. Help the Colombias and the Argentinas, because they want to get there. Now, when they start electing people that are tyrannical and treat their population bad, that's when we need to take a stand. That's when we need to say, no, we object to you, we'll put a trade embargo on you, we'll stop dealing with you, like we've done with Russia sanctions, we will make them pariahs. That type of order needs to evolve for this century.
Talk a little bit about your forthcoming book.
Yeah, I can't say much because my publisher would kill me.
Not to put you on the spot.
I am in Act 2 of my career. I've decided that I had a gift given to me called running Dow for 15 years and 43 years at the company. I learned about how the world ran, and I learned the mistakes that were being made. And I said, I owe it to generations. I owe it to my immediate family, but beyond, to my global family, to bring some of those lessons to the table and to actually not just talk about the problem, but as an engineer, describe a solution. So that's what I'm doing. I'm actually going to provide solutions that I've learned the hard way to some of these intractable problems that we've been discussing here today.
Great. Well, Andrew Liveris, it's great to see you, and great that we're all back in person at full.
It's so good.
Yeah.
It's so good, and thanks for this great summit, and you and Nick and the team do a phenomenal job. Proud to be part of it.
Thank you.
Cheers, Matt.